As we know, World of Warcraft is now pretty old. Even Classic WoW was released nearly 6 years ago at this point, and if there's one thing that's pretty clear about the classic versions, is that it's not all nostalgia that made the re-releases popular. Classic WoW is one of the very few games that has stood the test of time. Even decades later, after the original release, it's still a great game to play. However, being so old does come with some flaws. So strap in, grab yourself a snack, and let's take a look at some of the most annoying things in classic World of Warcraft. Gathering professions are core skills within the game, great for supplying yourself with materials, making gold, and testing your patience. The amount of times you can fail attempts at skinning, herbing and mining even while being at a suitable level can be pretty annoying. A few phases ago in Season of Discovery I would farm Zul'gurub crocs for bijous, coins and skinning for rugged leather. It took me longer to skin all of the crocs than it did to do the entire run because of the sheer amount of fails even with the skinning enchant. And we've all been there where you found a herb in the open world only to fail the attempt 3 times and someone comes along and just snags it from in front of you. Now let's talk about layering. I understand why layering is in the game and it's most probably a good thing as a whole, but it's still extremely annoying. Sometimes no matter what you do, you just can't get onto the layer where you need to be, and there's plenty of times where I've needed an enchant and the game just won't layer you. There's been plenty of times where I've been leveling and invited people to do quests and you've got to wait 10 minutes to get on the layer. An example with bad layering was in phase 2 of Season of Discovery during the Blood Moon events. It was common to get layered away from your party during the event due to the amount of people in one area. I personally think being able to choose your layer would be great, and if a layer is full then you just can't join that layer, but people can still choose to join your layer if your layer is free, and maybe put a small 5-minute cooldown on it to stop people from constantly layer hopping for herbs and such like that. This reminds me a little bit of how Runescape was when I played that years ago. You would choose a world to join, which you could say is essentially the same thing as having a different layer in World of Warcraft, and at any point you could log out of your world and change to a different one. I really like trolls. Most people think they're ugly, and sure, they are trolls, they're supposed to be ugly, but man, it is so annoying that no matter what, your toes are always poking out. Dismounting out in the open world is one of the most annoying things. A prime example of this is those horrible ass bug caves that you find throughout the world. Passing by the entrances where you're 100% outdoors, and just because your horse even so breathes onto the edge of one of these, you get dismounted. Or what about the one that annoys me the most, which is the steps going into Zul'gurub? This one is just a gamble. Half of the time you fly up there no problems, the other half of the time you just get dismounted. The worst part about being dismounted here is that if your faction isn't currently in control of the entrance outside, you're probably going to end up dying and having to do a corpse run, whereas if you're on a mount, you still stand a chance of making it in. If you play a class that can buff people, you would definitely have had this one done to you. You're in a dungeon or a raid buffing people up, and as you go to drink you realise you're in combat, because warriors using blood rage puts them in combat, which puts you in combat from buffing them. And then you just stand there like a lemon with no mana, unable to drink, and the tanks just go and pull. Pretty fun. Random disconnects. And I'm not talking about because of your internet or even because of the game's server, but there's some places in the game that if you hit the right spot, you'll instantly disconnect. There is a ton of these spots around the world, but the one that always stuck with me was the tents inside the building where you would queue up for battlegrounds in Orgrimmar. Back in 2019 Classic, when I was ranking up my mage, often while waiting for a queue to pop, I would jump around these tents, and every so often you would just get randomly disconnected. Let's now do a quick fire round of one annoying thing for each class. Paladins, auto attack into level 60 just to wear a dress. Warlocks, soul shard farming and shards not stacking. Warriors, parry parry miss dodge, parry parry miss dead. Mages. Druids, not being able to use potions while in form. Hunters, losing an entire bag slot to a quiver. Rogues, losing combo points when switching targets. This especially hurts when needing to kick another target. Shamans, yes I say shaman not shaman, it's my accent, deal with it. Having to set each totem one by one and not being able to recall them. And lastly, priests, never being able to power ward shield warriors because they generate no rage. There's a ton of other annoying things for each class as well, let me know which is the most annoying for you. Questing is one of the best aspects to Classic WoW, but that being said, some quests are pretty annoying. especially some of the drop rate quests. Now don't get me wrong, I love questing and I don't mind some quests taking long or having lowish drop rates, but some are ridiculous. Like the one in Stranglethorn where you need to collect 25 necklaces from trolls and the drop rate is absolutely abysmal. There's another quest in Stranglethorn called Mock Thardins, I think, enchantment, where you need to find a pristine tigress fang. And oh boy, it's pristine alright with how bad that drop rate is. But I think it's okay when all you need is one, not 25 like the troll necklaces. While we're talking about the trolls in Stranglethorn, those Blood Scout boys are a nuisance if you're a melee class, because they constantly net you, run back a few yards and slowly whittle you down. Is there anything really more annoying than Murlocs? Okay, now this one isn't really the game's fault, but do you guys ever forget to press enter before typing to chat and instead just end up moving all around, opening all kinds of menus and burning cooldowns by accident? Because every so often it happens to me. World buffs. Some people love them, some people hate them. And before chrono boons were introduced into the game, they were definitely a frustrating part of classic WoW. But regardless of chrono boons, there is still one world buff in particular that sucks to get sometimes, and that's the Darkmoon Fair buff. Half of the time it's not a problem because it's in your faction zone, but when it's in the enemy faction zone it becomes a nightmare to grab. On top of the fact that if you fail at getting away with the buff and die, you are put on a 4-hour in-game cooldown before you can receive another Darkmoon Fair buff. This part is the reason it's annoying. Not necessarily because it's hard to get in the enemy zones, but the fact that you get locked to a 4-hour in-game cooldown if you die with it. Now, we've all been there. Inside a dungeon, raid, or maybe even a cave questing, you've got a hunter with you, who has about as much control over his pet as a British person next to a cup of tea. I don't know what it is with you hunters and those bloody pets, but some of your level 10 pet licenses need revoking. One of the most frustrating things about playing on the Alliance and doing PvP is the Orcs racial called Hardiness, which gives the player a 25% chance to resist stuns. As a Paladin main, it feels like my Hammer of Justice just never hits Orcs. And one of the most frustrating things about playing on the Horde for PvP is having to wait an eternity to even get into a battleground. I usually play a mage on the Horde during classic versions of the game, and to be fair, even I get annoyed at the Paladin's talent eye for an eye, because when you get a fat crit, you take what feels like a third of your health bar in return. If you're a tank or a healer, you'll know all about logging into the game and instantly getting whispered. It's nice to be needed, but sometimes it can get a little annoying, especially if you just want to chill. Or what about being a mage and literally just being in a capital city? Hey man, hey, can I buy a portal to Ironforge? Like brother, just hop on the flight path or deep run tram. The most annoying thing about classic WoW as a whole for me though is that I'm a Ret Paladin main, and Ret Paladins aren't considered a viable raiding spec in classic. This also isn't just annoying for Ret Paladins, but DPS Shamans, Shadow Priests, Boomkins and a few other specs too. Of course you can always play what you want and in any way that you want, but it's not very fun being the lowest DPS and feeling like you're being carried and taking best in slot gear from specs that actually do way more damage. But you know what? I still wouldn't change it for Classic, and in general I still wouldn't change pretty much anything here for Classic WoW, because in a way that's what makes the game so good. It's perfectly imperfect. However, this is the reason I and many people want a constantly updated and fully budgeted Classic Plus. Because although I have played through Classic countless times and probably will continue to do so, it would be so cool to expand onto it with brand new dungeons, raids, zones, balancing, gear, art and gameplay, but all within the same classic setting and style that we know and love. Karazhan Crypts and the Scarlet Enclave from Season of Discovery are both great examples of this in my opinion. But anyway, all of that could be for a different video. I just wanted to end it on a little bit of hopium there. Let me know what the most annoying thing is about Classic WoW for you. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video.